What's up, guys? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com back with another episode of the RMR Podcast. Today, I'm joined with special guest, recording artist Reo Cragun. How you doing today, Reo?
What's happening, man? I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
100%, man. 100%. You got some ties to the PNW. We'll get into a little bit later. So always excited to get someone with some connection to home. But
Right.
first of all, I usually kick these off with just kind of introduction to people, whatever their subject matter is. We do music or cannabis, but today we're talking about music. So just kind of curious your origin story within music, man. Like, when did you get started kind of as taking that step up from like a fan to really a fan and then being a creative? Because I know any creative goes to that period where like everybody loves music, but you love it a little bit more than the average person, and then you start making it. I'm sure it was probably something similar.
For sure. Yeah, it really was, man. I've been into music since I was just like a little kid, knee high, man. And my mom and my aunt, I grew up in a all women household. So it was my mom and my aunt. They were playing music all throughout the day, just blasting it through the crib. And that's how I grew up, and I just fell in love with music at an early age. I wanted, nothing more than to like learn how to play piano when I was a kid. That didn't end up happening, but my mom bought me a guitar and got me some guitar lessons when I was young. I had to have been like 12 years old. And since then, I was just like, got interested in production. And so, during that time, FL Studio in Ableton, I was like, yo, I gotta learn how to make beats and whatnot. So yeah. And then I started recording myself at like 14, 15 years old. And it was just a hobby back then. I had a lot of self-doubts about doing it as a career and whatnot. I was really good in school. And so I was like, when I turned 18, I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to any school in Washington. So went to Washington State University, and then I just realized I know I'm good at school, but I really want to do music, man. I really want to do it. And so I took a gamble and just kind of risked it all. Risked that full ride scholarship, man. But yeah, it panned out, and I'm really happy that I made that decision.
Washington State, man, the Cougars, they get down out there, man. I don't know. Not a ton of people outside, maybe not just Washington, maybe the Pacific Northwest respects them as a party school. But as someone who's traveled and done a lot of college things, they really don't get talked about enough, like nationally, when we talk about party schools, man. They do it big out there.
For sure. Yeah, they do, man. And Pullman, it goes crazy out there for sure. Yeah, I got sucked up into that for sure, like early. Yeah, man, it was good times. Good times.
Absolutely. So, backing up, like Washington, you're from Washington, correct? Well, and what part of Washington?
Yeah, man. Born and raised in Vancouver, Washington. Just right there across the bridge from Portland, Oregon. And that's where, I lived for, 19, 20 years before I packed it up and got on an airplane, flew to Los Angeles, California, and burned all my money. It was gone like that too. It was crazy, man.
Yeah, especially trying to be being a musician, going to the studio and everything. I mean, it gets expensive real quick, man.
For sure. Yeah, man. I had to get innovative with it. So luckily, like, I learned how to record myself young. So I would just work out the house, and then, if some of the homies were at like a studio session, I would pull up and just try and get in as many rooms as possible, and just work.
What made it, like, being from Vancouver, obviously, depending on who you talk to, that's Portland metro area. Some people, say, it's not Portland, but what made you, instead of being like, because a lot of people in Washington, and I'm not down talking anyone, it's difficult to move to a whole new state, but in terms of moving to the big city right there in Portland, which is still a small market, what was the inspiration? Like, I'm gonna go to LA and just kind of sidestep, going to Portland and grinding it out locally.
Right. So there was like a lot of, man, I was just plotting and scheming back in those days. I just remember, like, how do I, take this to the next level, and how do I grow as an artist? And I was playing shows in Portland like all the time. We were playing at, Hawthorne and Roseland, and it was super cool. But there wasn't a lot of people that were kind of ascending during this time. And so and there weren't a lot of people to, that I could rely on as far as like mentorship, like in order to how to figure it out to get, to the next level. And so I was like, geez, man, like all these new acts that are coming out, they're coming out of either Los Angeles, California, they're coming out of New York City, or they're coming out of, at that time, Atlanta, Georgia as well. And especially now these days. Mm-hmm. And they were moving from their cities to these hubs, and they were just working amongst like other creatives and whatnot. So I just figured in my head, I'm like, yo, Los Angeles is pretty close. Like, I mean, worst comes to worst, I'm just a plane flight away back home, And so that's what really pushed me to go do that. And man, it was scary for sure at that time as well. I remember there was just like so much uncertainty. And like I said, no one that I knew was doing anything like of that nature. I didn't have anyone to, like fall back on or like ask these like important questions that I needed answered during those times. And yeah. And so I was like, whatever, I just got to go out there and put myself out there and meet these people. And so that's what I did. And still some of my greatest friends, like to this day and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like that mentorship in that community is so important, and that honestly just like sparked like so often in the Pacific Northwest, we talk about, oh, we don't have infrastructure, we don't have labels, we don't have very many artists that are even able to put people on if that's the route people want to go.
Yeah.
But even amongst all that, right? Like those are two very important things on any grind, whether you're doing business, whether you're doing music, no matter what your craft is. Like mentorship and then fellowship and or community, right, are like instrumental to like growth, development, and even expanding your network. And so that's crazy that those are the two things. Like that's very wise of you to point out that like those, and just in my opinion, those are very wise things to point out of that benefit. And I don't think a lot of people even give that credit. Even out here, there's a kind of a lack of a sense of community, that crabs in a bucket type mentality where people don't understand, like in these big cities, people get on because maybe not everybody's friends and whatever, but there's more people working there. If you're hungry and you match up with someone else that's hungry, that's going to, even if you don't work on each other's records, if you just have that community, it pushes.
Yeah,
you, right?
for sure. Yeah. I mean, and like, honestly, like it accelerated like my growth, like by a disgusting amount as well, because, like I was able to work with other artists during that time, whether they were like, like the same caliber at that time or, like a smaller artist and then, or a bigger artist. I was learning and I was soaking up knowledge. I still do that to this day, man. Like I'm just a sponge. I'm like, yo, why are you doing that? Like, and then how can I incorporate it into like what I'm doing? But yeah, that was a crazy time, man. Yeah, it really was. And it's like you were saying too, like in the city too, like for example, like in Portland and whatnot, there were like a lot of like big fish in like a small pond. And that's great. And it's like super dope. And when but moving to Los Angeles, it was tough because, kind of, you literally have to build from scratch and you have to be the small fish in a big pond and whatnot. And so that was wild, but it was really cool. And yeah. And it was very character developing as well. Yeah.
And I think that's like, and it's not to downplay or slight anyone, but to get popping in Portland, it's a whole degree less of, it's not even necessarily talent, because that's not a question, but of money and people that you need to become aware, and the competition of people that have the talent, the look, that are trying to get people aware of them, as opposed to LA where, you're not the only story of someone who like packed up everything and went out there on a dream, right? That's the majority of stories in that city. It's very competitive to build anything out there.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, it's tough, man. Yeah, but yeah, it was an experience, and yeah, I'm glad that I took that route because, like I said, it like really developed me as a human being, also as an artist, but yeah, really as a human. Yeah, for sure.
That's game, bro. I hope people pay attention to that. When backing up a little bit, like obviously you sounded like talking to you, it sounded like you started with production and then moved into to putting vocals down and stuff. Your sound, kind of touches a lot of genres, right? It definitely is melodic, regardless of what lane you're going. It's very melodic, but there's some stuff that's like more defined hip hop, rap type esque, some R&B. And then, there's some electronic pop, which I'm not at this day and age, I'm not really sure where one of those starts and where one of those ends in that genre. But what do you kind of classify yourself as when it comes to genre, or do you not like adhere to those standards?
Yeah, man, I don't really adhere to them because like I know I have like my lane is like and where I shine is in those lanes. But it's funny because like, man, I write so much music. Just whatever I'm feeling that day is like what I'm gonna create. Sometimes it's tough. Like I don't want to write like an R&B song or whatever if like the sun is shining and whatnot. I'm just like, oh shoot, I'm not in that mindset. Let me just like write some hard ass fucking vibe for today. But yeah, so I don't know, like originally it started out I was I want to be like a rapper, man. I had bars and whatnot, and then it slowly developed into just being like, oh cool, like let me do some catchy stuff, like I'm having fun with this. And then as that time went on, then I've always loved electronic music, and I started collaborating with a lot more electronic artists, and man, I just like was like, dude, I gotta incorporate this more into like what I'm doing and really kind of just try and build my own sound. So these days I'm doing like hip hop mixed tastefully with like electronic like soundscapes and whatnot. And so yeah, that's just how I'm building. And mind you, I am a producer, and when I first started out, my beats were horrible. It took a long time to like be comfortable releasing some of like like some music that I produced on, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
What do you start with music in terms of like making beats? Do you like start making beats and then start kind of coming up with vocals or melodies and vocals to it, and that helps you finish stuff, or do you like finish beats and then put lyrics to them later, or what's the process there go?
Yeah, it depends on the day. Like, so I just started like really making beats for like other artists like in the last like year and a half. But it's funny, like I have mad ADD, so like I don't have like one creative process. I mainly have like three, and I swap it up because that's how like I can ensure that the music is not sounding like the same exact every single time. And so a lot of times I'll start making a beat, and then I'll get halfway through the beat and I just can't wait to put the vocals on. So I'm like, oh shoot, so I wrote the whole song with like this half-ass beat, and then I add production to finalize it, or else I like send it to one of the homies who's like a way better producer than me, and it'll be a full song. Alternatively, I will write a song to a bad beat of mine that I'm just like not in love with, scrap the whole music portion, send it over to one of my friends, and they'll completely make something from scratch. And then the last is like I'll just like go through like a beat folder that I have, which is scary, by the way, man. My beat folder is scary. It's like thousands of beats in that thing that friends and strangers like send to me and whatnot. So like I'll scour that thing and then I'll write songs to that. Yeah. And I've met a lot of like cool collaborators just like on the internet just through that. Yeah, through that submission email too, which is actually really cool.
That's fire. And I think that's one of the big things, obviously I haven't really operated outside of hip hop, but I think, hip hop, especially when I came up, there's a earlier version of the internet, but that was like everything, there's like two choices, like try and grind in your local scene and meet artists, or like try and find fucking rappers on the internet. And there was a lot less tools back in like 2006, and
yeah.
that, but it was still like, hip hop, at least the art form of hip hop has that connectivity between producers and artists, where producers like send beats out and you randomly build these relationships with people that sometimes you only really deal with through like fucking emails and shit. So like,
Right.
how much are you working with people physically in the physical form versus just kind of like sending files back and forth on the internet?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of the time lately, I'm pretty much half and half. So I go out to Los Angeles like at this rate. I just moved to Vegas, right? During during COVID. And I was like, yo, I'm just gonna chill here. I'm just gonna be, tucked off and just like take it easy for a while. And it's so funny because I completely lied to myself. I've been in like Los Angeles like 2-3 times a month or like, just somewhere else like in the US, which is crazy. Yeah, so it's like half and half. Like I work on a lot of stuff remotely because I work quick. And so I'm just like, yo, send me the beat or whatever. And I get it done. But then a lot of the times I prefer working in person because it's more fun and it's more communal and whatnot. But yeah, I'm pretty 50-50 with it these days.
Yeah, they definitely have their benefits. And so this, the album that you just put out, the Diary of a Loner, was recorded out in the desert, if I'm correct. And so we were talking about it briefly before we got started. But I'm just curious, kind of, a lot will be going out to Joshua Tree, and whether it's creative or they're tech people to get their vibe sheet right, whatever the fuck they're doing out there. But what did the impact like just of your surroundings have on like the sounds and the creative approach to this last project?
Yeah, man, it was really cool. This is the first album that I wrote pretty much remotely, and I was really out there. It was I had just got off a world tour with my homie Flume as well, so we were gone for months, and then we came back and the world was locked down. And so I was like, dang, I was just like free as hell for the last like year. And we were living in this small apartment in Larchmont, which is pretty much mid city in Los Angeles. And it was me and my girl. And I was like, yo, like, I'm not trying to be locked down in this like small apartment. We got to get like a big crib. So we ended up getting like a 6-bedroom house, way off in the desert, in Coachella Valley, in this city called Indio. That's where I ended up writing the album. And a good friend of mine, Jeremy Lloyd, who's one half of Marion Hill, he ended up executive producing it alongside of me. And we just sent stuff back and forth. And then, the features on the album too, like is just friends of mine who, we just send stuff back and forth. I'm like, yo, I got this idea. You want to do something to it? Yeah, for sure. But it was cool. I actually really enjoyed it. It was I had to get really creative with it. And it was interesting because it's a very like introspective album. I'm talking a lot about like my life and a lot of the things that I was going through in the last like couple of years. So it was very honest, and it was it was a cool experience. But I was happy that I was out there by myself, like in the desert, pretty much, because I could really, get honest with myself and put it on record.
Yeah, get away from those distractions. There's definitely something, whether it's depressing or, creatively stimulating when you look out and it's kind of flat. I know there's some mountains out in the Coachella Valley, but it's just kind of like flat, the horizon. There's no water, so the horizon just kind of like ducks off, and so there's definitely a different vibe out there.
Yeah, and it's like low-key artificial too, because for anyone who's listening, like it's a desert. So I mean, like, people aren't designed to be living out there. So what they do is they have like these developments go up, which is like cookie cutter homes that like all look the same and whatnot too. And they put up hundreds of these damn houses. And so we were living in one of these gated communities. The HOA was just wild. It was just so funny because it's like, like we had to keep the grass watered like a special amount. So that way it's like bright and vibrant as hell, like, which obviously like they want to make sure that the neighborhood's nice and whatnot. It was required that we had like a landscaper in there and whatnot. Man, that water bill, I kid you not, was like the most, it was extravagant. It was like 350, 450, depending on the month. I was like, geez, man, yeah, people are not supposed to be living in the desert. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, your grass better look fucking crispy ass green.
Man, my grass had a fade, bro. That was, yeah, it was crispy.
Oh man.
Sure.
So what inspired, you know, again, we were talking about this right before we started. What inspired the move out to Vegas? You know, I was joking. I said you jumped from one desert to the next, you know, rather than moving back to the hubbub of LA. What was the inspiration to going out to LV?
Yeah, so I mean, taxes. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was definitely a part of it. And then also, you know, I've been in Los Angeles for many years, like 7-8 years, and I just needed like a switch, like a change of pace in my life. And I was, you know, going to the same places. I was in my little daily routine, and it was like creatively boxing. So I was like, let me just kind of go tune in with myself and, you know, figure it out real quick. We're probably going to end up going back for sure because, you know, I miss it. That's definitely my second home, aside from Vancouver, Washington. But yeah, so we've just been playing it by ear and whatnot. And I thought I would be a lot more productive out here as well. And turns out I definitely was a lot more productive. Yeah. Because I mean, you know, where you live, and if you've been there for a while, it's like every week it's like somebody's birthday, or it's like there's an event going on. You gotta shake some hands, do some industry stuff and whatnot. And so I just wanted to tap out of the matrix for a bit. That was the main thing.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We were talking about earlier, like how important community is, and it's not like community is a bad thing, but there is, you know, I don't even necessarily want to call it a downside, but you say it can be inhibiting, right? When you get into whether it's routines or just so much going on, especially being in the industry, there, you know, if you want people to support you, you got to support them, which isn't going to stop when you move. But when you're in the same city, it's like this weird pressure, and you got to contemplate, should I be going here or there, rather than like, I just need to like focus on the shit I got to focus on. And it's no disrespect to everyone, but I just got to lock in, you know?
Yeah, I wanted to get better, man. And it's like, I'm always striving to get better, and I'm always striving to, you know, keep making better songs and better music and whatnot. And so I really took this time. It's like, you know, when Goku goes in the hyperbolic time chamber, you got to cut everybody off and whatnot. But yeah, so yeah, I had to charge up real quick.
I dig it. That's a good reference right there. You know, on this, we were talking a little bit about the features. You know, you said there's a lot of your friends. You got, you know, Marion Hill, Clear Eyes, and then of course like Kid Ink was one of the big features on there. What was the emphasis of doing, like, but on the album as a whole, there wasn't a lot of features. So what was the emphasis on like kind of going light on the features, especially in today's age? And then we'll get into some of the features after that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main concern for me on this is like, I didn't want to flood the album with like a whole bunch of features, especially like, man, I mean, you know, some of the verses are like very melodic forward, and then I do rap shit. So it's like a lot of times it sounds like there is a feature on these songs already, because it's like I'm versatile with it. And then also it was like I had a lot to say, so a lot of times I couldn't just like accomplish things in like one verse. And yeah, for sure. Definitely. And the main thing for me was like, I really got to tell you with this. So yeah, I didn't feel it was right to just like flood it with features.
And I know that probably changes from song to song and project to project and what you're going for, but what are some of those creative constraints that you're like whether it's like, I gotta do it like this, or like, I won't do it like that, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have some of those moments where I'm pretty hard stuck on okay, it's got to be like this. But for the most part, I'm really open, and I listen to the advice of you know, some of my team and whatnot, and Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty open with it. There was like, I gotta be in charge, obviously, of like the art and whatnot, and I gotta be in charge of like the song titles and like the A&R process as well. I me and Jeremy, like from Marion Hill, Clear Eyes, we went through all these songs and we picked the order. We decided which ones were going to be on the album and whatnot. Having like an external entity doing that for you sometimes is like really cloudy and can like really change like the entire mood of an album. And so, yeah, we wanted to tell our story and whatnot with this. And so, yeah.
Do you adhere to, we just did an article, we were having this conversation the other day, and I was telling someone like growing up, like fucking rap songs were, 16/8, 3 verses. And it was like rappers would force shit. They'd come in the studio and like not have a third verse, and they would refuse. Like there was this refusal of doing songs that were less than 3 verses.
Yep.
And then it kind of started to shift. And now we see like a lot of like hook, soup, like 32 bar verse, bridge, outro, and unique things. So how do you approach like song length? And do you like have any rules that you have to stick to, or you just really just vibe it out on each individual track?
Yeah, this is an amazing question, man. My answer is it depends on the song. I personally do not like songs that are longer than like 3 minutes. I try and keep it. I like songs that are longer than 3 minutes, but I like song structure that is like short. And I think the more that you're able to say a lot without saying a lot, like there's like a superpower in that and whatnot. And so yeah, I'm a big advocate of trim the fat. So if it's like, bro, if this doesn't gotta be in the song, cut that shit and like let them just keep replaying it. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. Trim the fat though, man. Like I tell that to like a lot of my friends and whatnot too, because sometimes you are forcing it, and it's like, songs, like you said, like there are not a lot of songs these days with like 3 verses anymore, and it used to only be 3 verses. Sometimes too, like playing at like a live show, I'm playing a song and I'm like, dang, I kind of want to end this song after the second verse or after this, after the hook, and just like go into the next stuff, because it feels like its time was lived on this stage, and like, yeah, let's keep going. Yeah.
And that same thing happens, and obviously you might have a leg up too being a producer, right? Because the same thing with like producers that aren't as seasoned working with artists, something that we find, especially got like folks that can actually play instruments, they're not used to like producing where the vocals, especially in today's age and like the sounds you make where it's so melodic, like the vocal is such a driver of the song. Like some producers, right, that aren't as seasoned, they fucking overlayer that shit or do too many leads on verses when it should just be like more open air and space.
Yep. For sure, man. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, actually one of the first people that taught me that was like Louis Bell from he does like a lot of the Post Malone stuff. He like, I remember I was showing him like songs from like my first album, Growing Pains, and he's like, bro, dude, this is so sick. Get rid of this, and this. I was like, oh, perfect. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you're right. Like verses should be more open because you got to let the vocal breathe. You got to let it shine. But yeah, I think a lot of that just comes with like time and experience and whatnot. And then it becomes easier to hear, yeah, and easier to, figure out the piece of the puzzle that's, that needs to be removed.
And what about like what to you makes a song like one that you're really, whether it's you hearing something or something from someone else or something you're creating, really the one, like in my opinion it's like sure it's the beat, sure it's the lyrics, but there's like these pockets, and it may be the hook, like it's usually attributed to hit single as the hook, but it's like these pockets of like 2 to 6 bars where like the vibe and the melody just like, that's the part you want to listen. You'll listen to the whole song because maybe you like the whole song, but when that part comes on, it just like gives you all the emotional fulfillment you need. Like what's kind of your interaction with that concept?
Yeah. I think that's another one that you can't really force. Like a lot of times that happens naturally. Like, like even think about the Drake record, I only love my bed and my mama.
Mhm.
It's like that piece is so impactful because they literally cut the entire music out of the song for a period of time that's like longer than traditionally accepted.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But that's what makes it like really catchy. um I mean, so there's like a whole bunch of different like tricks that you can use in order to like come up with those moments. And that, like that's an arrangement thing. Which, like since I produce, like I know how important like arranging the music actually is, and we went through and like did that all for this album. But there are some people who only strictly just arrange music, which is pretty cool. That's like an interesting like career and whatnot. But yeah, there's some masters of the craft for sure. I know a lot of the tricks and whatnot, but yeah, you got to be a different animal for sure.
Yeah, if you make your living off just that alone, like that's a
Right,
superpower for sure. It's a
for
superpower.
sure, for sure, definitely.
What about the album was difficult for you, or is there any parts on it like or even just creation that you find difficult? Like, as someone that produces and writes and performs, right? Like, that's a lot of creative shit that you got to finish. And I always joke, like, as creatives, I'm creative in a different route, but like we like starting shit. Like, that's the fun
Yep.
shit. Finishing shit is like difficult, and that's another superpower. Like, people that are able to like diligently finish it consistently is just like, whether you're a photographer, web design, doesn't fucking matter if you're creative.
Yep.
Like, that is difficult. Is that something that you experience, or do you have other kind of like obstacles in the way of creating?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's tough to finish. It's like, because when is a song actually done? You know what I mean? Like that's a question that I often am revisiting like way too much. And so I have things that I do, and it's mainly send them to friends. So like I'll get it to like where I like it at 90%, and then I'm like, hey man, can you add or subtract some things in order to like really bring this over the line?
Mhm.
And yeah, and so for people who did that on this album was Johan. He's insane. He's so talented, man. He's like himself, and then also he's a producer. He adds, he's he adds music to some of like the greatest songs that have come out in the last like 10 years and whatnot. And so he really helped bring this over. Where it was just like, oh shoot, I'm so happy with this. And then also Jeremy Lloyd, like the same thing. It's like he just knows. So it's like when the song's almost done, I'm like, okay, cool, what? And just do your thing, man. You have all my
Cool.
trust. Just do your thing, and then usually I get it back within like a day, and it's like, oh, cool, perfect. This is exactly what it needed. And then yeah, we just uh, send it off to mixing, and yeah, and then we're done with it. Yeah, it's so funny, man. It's like that's the sad thing. It's like never done with it. It's like, but I hear stuff in like if I go and revisit like old work as well, I'm like, geez, I really wish that I knew then what I know now, because I would have made that kick hit way harder. Or it's like I should have performed that vocally a little bit different, or I messed up that melody.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, but it's funny,
Yeah,
man.
when
That's why.
when are you done? When are you done with art? I think is a hard thing for anyone, right? And like, I
Yeah,
think I think especially sometimes when shit comes so easy or so simple, right? Maybe it is one verse, you're like, damn, this feels complete. Or maybe the beat has no fucking drums and you're like, this
yep.
shit feels completely complete. Do you also feel that like need sometimes where you're like, nah, this was like I didn't contribute enough to like want to put this out? Like, I feel like someone else that understands the process would judge me for how little I put into this. Like, do you ever
Yeah.
find yourself kind of deal with that complex?
For sure, man. For sure. And it's like I think about it all the time. I really do. It's like even when this project came out, I was like, dang, like should I have added like more songs to this, or like, should I have made this drum groove different, or and it's funny, I was thinking about it, I was like, dang, like, what could be cool is just like, like a director's cut or something, like is like the deluxe version of like the album, where it's like, different grooves or whatever. It's like other versions of the song as well that we had at the time, because a lot of these songs have multiple versions, you know what I mean? Like the music is different, like the drums were different, maybe a verse was different. It's crazy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that is something that is difficult about kind of like wearing a lot of hats as well, is because, like I can change a lot of the things, with my bare hands. So it's like, fuck it, I'm going to change it. And now I got another version and I'm like, oh shoot, why did I do that? Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. We had a comment, someone come in, they said they took a picture with you during your performance at Firefly.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, sick. Hey, what's up?
And so, I wanted to ask you, I had it wrote down, with you touching on so many genres, and obviously, like, my understanding is you perform with quite a bit of festivals that might be like adjacent to like or just pop in general. What
Yep.
lineup do you feel like most comfortable, or what genre of lineup do you feel most comfortable performing to, whether it's like the fit of your music or the crowd, the energy of the crowd that you enjoy?
Right. Man, I honestly, I feel right at home in pretty much everywhere. If it's like if it's like I can cater the set and whatnot. Like I can cater like which songs I'm gonna, which is what we do, I decide on what the set's gonna look like. But man, I mean, as far as the energy, you just got to come out there with the energy and just like, okay, cool. Like I got you guys' attention for the next like 30, 45 minutes or whatever. And we're gonna have like a good time. Yeah, for sure. So as long as I go out there and just like turn shit up, like I'm pretty comfortable. Like because I toured with, I think my first tour was with Yachty, like 20 dates or something, and then I toured with Billie Eilish, which is a completely different crowd and whatnot. Her fans are so awesome, man. They're super receptive. They love the music. Had a blast. And then doing a run with Flume Harley, and it's like, and then I've played so many festivals as well, just under my own project, and so yeah, I feel pretty confident in like a lot of different circumstances. It took a lot of trial and error.
Definitely learning, but definitely, I can see that through the like I said, the soundscapes your sound catalog goes through. It should be pretty easy for you to match up. But do you have like a favorite? Like if you got to pick which crowd or type of show or festival is your favorite to perform at? You got one that stands out, or you just all of them equally?
Yeah, I love. Okay, so all right, so this is so wild, but a lot of times when you're playing like small rooms are my favorite for sure, hands down. But I like a small room where like I can take a wireless mic and hop in the crowd type shit. Because a lot of times mics be having feedback if like you pass like a certain distance on the stage. Oh my gosh, man, that's my worst nightmare. That I cringe every time, and I'm like, oh man, that throws me off a little bit. But yeah, so being able to jump in the crowd and perform and whatnot, like that's my favorite stuff. But there was this moment we played this show. I played the show with Flume in Mexico City. It was the craziest shit I ever seen in my life, man. It was like there were so many people. I looked into the crowd and it just didn't end. Like my eyes couldn't see the end of the crowd. Like that's how many people there. It felt like, when DMX was on stage, during that like iconic moment, bro, that's exactly what it looked like. And, we're in Mexico. At the same time, the Fiesta Bowl, I think, was happening, which is like an NFL game that's in Mexico City. And I think, is that what it's called? I don't know. It was something where there's a,
I can't remember.
Yeah. And man, they were singing the songs back to me, and I couldn't even perform because they were just overpowering me. And I was like, dang, man, like English is not the native language, obviously, in Mexico. Right. but yeah, they knew the words, and yeah, that was just like, that was really yeah, that was one of those moments where it was just like, man, I wrote this song like in my bedroom, and yeah, now like 40,000 people are singing it to me right now.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Another one you saw is, obviously we can't get by, the single, the Lights with Kid Ink, This Out. That beat, when I first heard that, we used to cover a lot of festivals that Kid Ink was on back when he did the chorus a bunch of times, and then the Pacific Northwest, some years prior when he really started to boom. But that beat, I had to ask you first, did you make that beat real quick?
Yeah, I made that beat. Yeah.
And then did you have him in mind for that? Because as soon as that, like when I heard the feature and I clicked on it early when Greg sent it over, and I was like, as soon as I heard the beat, I was like, yeah, this sounds like something fit for
that's dope. Yeah, no, I didn't have him in mind at all. I was just like, I had wrote the song, and I actually did a second verse on it, and I was like, bro, Ink would go crazy on this. Like, let me hit him up. I was like, yo, what are you doing? Yo, you got to get on this song, bro. Like, yeah. So I actually sent him like a couple. I sent him like a 2-pack or 3-pack or something, and he ended up choosing that one. And I was like, yo, yeah, he crushed it. He definitely took it to the next level. My second verse was definitely nowhere near his verse. I was like, oh shit, okay, cool, yeah.
And then is that how usually working with artists like that is, like send them a couple different records that got openings and kind of vibe them out, and how tailored is it towards, like, you think they would be good on that?
It's tailored for sure. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't normally just like send a batch like that. Like it's like curated. I'm like, yo, you would crush on this and you would go crazy on this, yeah. For other stuff, yeah, I mean that's how most of it is. It's like it's very like handpicked for like the homies and whatnot. Yeah, for sure.
And then something else back on the album, right? Like, it's something that I heard you attribute to earlier and then listen to it, right? It's very personal. How do you go about like putting kind of your real thoughts and fears and insecurities and like experiences, like, and putting them in a way that's like consumable, right? Because especially the music you're making, it's not like, there's some introspective, I'm just gonna spit some crazy ass bars. It's like there's these carefully designed spaces for shit to sound, not in order just to sound good, but it sounds good. So how do you like blend these real life experiences with, like we were saying earlier, of kind of doing the less is more approach and making it sound good?
Yeah, man. I think it's just like I learned like a couple years ago, I just gotta, be unafraid with the shit and just like, it is what it is. Like, we're sitting here talking, I'm looking crazy. I just came out of album mode. You know what I mean? It's just like, like, I think that as long as I'm honest and like straightforward with it and really coming from a genuine place, I think people just automatically just like, really, you're just gonna, oh, cool, this is dope. This may not even be like, my favorite type of music or whatever, but like, this is a vibe for sure. Yeah. But that's kind of the approach. That's definitely the approach. It's like, I think it's very, like, especially in like, doing this as a career too, like, the music itself is not going to keep, an artist on top if you're making like the dopest shit and you got like a bad attitude or some shit, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, for sure. So I think, it all gets packaged together.
Yeah. And, I think too, earlier we were saying, is music, so much of it is rooted on like these moments and these sounds, and like, not to be like too spiritual, but like these vibes and the emotion it makes people feel. And I think when that matches up with, whether it comes from a place of authenticity or something real, or that's translated through, right? Because sometimes you could say some simple ass bar that's a hella real to your life, but it's like some generic, like, yeah, that's not like an amazing, unique story. But when it's like rooted in that authenticity, it connects because you're not the only one that feels that or has that thought, you know?
Right. For sure. For sure. And like, I mean, sometimes it's not even the words. It could be in like the delivery. Like, man, um sometimes I don't even know what Yeet is saying, but I'm just like, damn, the way you like going crazy on that beat, I'm like, yo, this shit's hard. You know, for sure. And you could tell it's like from an authentic place. Like he's, yeah, for sure. Cause it just comes so naturally, you know, for sure.
Yeah, I listen to Future, but I also like to make fun of him. But I was just playing his shit the other day, and my wife hates it. Sometimes I'll just spit back his bars like in Speak, and she'll just like, "What the fuck are you saying?" I was like, "That's what he was just rapping about." It doesn't even like he's jumping from topic to topic, just saying like random shit, but it came out so fucking hard on the beat.
For sure, man. And like, you know, sometimes like you have those moments where it's just like, oh, bro, you're not even in day-to-day life anymore. Like the music just like transcended you to that other place. That's why you're just like in the zone saying the lyrics, you know what I mean? Not even think about the words. You just, yeah, for sure. Man, I seen Future live one time too. And man, he sounds like exactly the same. I was like, yo, what? Damn. Yeah, it was dope. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a figure, man. He's like,
yeah,
you know, the glasses, the look, everything. I could,
for sure.
You know what? I know that you're in on like in the NFT and the Web3 world. So I'm just curious, like kind of your approach to that, and then like how much your interest in that is rooted just in that versus like, you know, packaging it and working, you know, having it work alongside the music career.
Yeah, for sure. I got super into crypto, and like NFTs and whatnot during, like the first like week of like lockdown and stay at home order in Los Angeles. I wasn't planning any more shows. I was just like, okay, cool. Well, what am I supposed to do with my money right now? Like, and so like, bro, I just went down the rabbit hole, and it just like, you know, that's where a lot of my energy went to during that time. I mean, my album cover is an NFT actually that I own. And so from, you know, buying and holding things, trading things, and researching a whole bunch, man. I went OD on this stuff, and I was like, man, I gotta become a creator. And I was like, dude, music at that time that I was super interested in things, music NFTs weren't really they weren't having a moment. They weren't really a thing at the time. There was only like a handful of artists like releasing on chain, and I was just asking around, got put into contact with some people who were really doing it in the space and building things. And I just, I started creating my own pieces on chain. And I'd just been, you know, really into it. It takes up a large part of my life now. And I love it. I literally love it. I'm going to New York in a couple of days. I'm going to NFT NYC. Playing a whole bunch of shows out there, supporting a whole bunch of friends, a whole bunch of projects and whatnot. Yeah, so I'm excited, man. Yeah,
that world is exploding, and it's obviously a new means to, you know, work within the art form, right? And release content, but it's also like you said, you're going out there to do shows. It's a whole new community, man.
It really is, man. It's kind of wild too because you know, they're so interactive and like genuine, and people want to see other people like really succeed in this space as well, which is so cool because you know, sometimes it's you know, if I go on YouTube or you go on Instagram, it's like, fuck this guy. You know what I mean? Like, your shit sucks. And it's like, you know, you don't ever see that stuff like in this space, which is like pretty cool. It's like, yo, like, how can we help each other? How can we make this bigger and things of that nature? And yeah, for sure. It's dope though.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I always say like hip hop is my love, and like that's the lane that I come from, but it's such a like finesse culture. Like, yeah, there's the negative side of just social media has infiltrated it, but like hip hop is so like finesse, like everybody's just trying to like come out of anything where it's like, I won, I'm the better this,
Right.
I've made more money, I
Yep.
finessed this for that. Oh, you want
Yeah.
this? You gotta pay for it. Like so
Yep.
much of that before anything. Whereas you get into like, obviously, I do a lot in the cannabis industry, which is similar to crypto, and then which
Yep.
is so new. And you get around people that are just genuinely excited. I think because it's so new and it's not,
Yep.
the gates and the gatekeepers aren't as established, that it's like more this communal excitement rather than like this hierarchy of just fucking bullshit, man.
Right, for sure, man. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Yeah, we've been, like I compared to like the early days of like SoundCloud and whatnot as well. It's
Mhm.
like there's just that, huge like high level of excitement and community and group effort as well. It's like, man, like, like I've collaborated with so many people in like the last like 8 months just because, I make music NFTs and I purchase music NFTs and whatnot. I'm a collector. Yeah, I got a pretty big collection. Yeah, and it's so funny. Yeah, man. I it's like whatever to me. It's just like, like I'm not a flexer. I've never been a flexer, bro. I'm like just trying to keep stacking, keep building, and maybe one day I'll wake up and I'll have an opportunity to, flex without nothing.
Take the pic in front of the Bentley and just stun on everyone on the gram.
Right.
Man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
It's coming. Nah, all right, man. Well, before I get you up out of here, man, what's next for Reo Cragun? What's next on the, obviously the you got some music that's pretty fresh, so I know you're gonna be working that, but what's the next move?
Yeah, I think you were cutting out a little bit, but yeah, the man, next is a whole bunch more music. During this time, man, I wrote like a few hundred songs, so I'm really just like I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, and I have a whole bunch of collaborations coming out, throughout the rest of the year, which I'm excited about, and then all throughout next year as well. I'm loaded up, man. I'm not playing around in these next couple years. It was just like a lot of that's what I was talking about, man. I had to come out, I had to go charge up, and I'm just coming different this time, man. I just like, yeah, no mercy this time.
I dig it, man. I dig it. Well, anybody out there looking to keep up with you at Reo Cragun on Instagram, the name is spelled in the description and the title. Diary of a Loner out on all platforms. A music video, The Lights with Kid Ink, out now. Search that on YouTube, Google it, all that, man. I really appreciate you checking in with us today, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thanks for chatting and thanks for having me. It was super fun.
100. This is the RMR Podcast, episode 40. We're back with